the ground fault circuit interrupter, or GFCI, requirement in section 210.8. A2 applies to all habitable portions of agricultural buildings that are used for purposes other than farming, such as dwelling units, offices, and storage areas. However, it does not apply to areas used for purely agricultural purposes, such as barns for livestock or equipment storage. Let's consider some specific examples. Firstly, in the case of a barn without livestock or an equipotential grid, ground fault circuit interrupters are not required inside dry areas. Secondly, if you have a barn with livestock and an equipotential grid, ground fault circuit interrupters are required within 6 feet of the equipotential grid. Thirdly, for an outbuilding with electrical outlets and located within 25 feet of the residence, ground fault circuit interrupters are required. Fourthly, if you have an outbuilding located over 100 feet from the residence and not used for habitable purposes, ground fault circuit interrupters are not required. Fifthly, a shop with electrical outlets requires ground fault circuit interrupters. It's important to note some other considerations. The definition of habitable portion is not explicitly defined in the National Electrical Code, or NEC. Inspectors should use their judgment to determine if a given area is intended for human occupancy. It is also important to note that local ordinances may have additional requirements for ground fault circuit interrupters in agricultural structures. Inspectors should consult with local authorities for specific guidance. Furthermore, inspectors should also consider the potential for electrical shock from equipment and machinery in agricultural settings. Ground fault circuit interrupters can provide an additional layer of protection in these situations. In conclusion, the ground fault circuit interrupter requirement in section 210.8 A2 applies to habitable portions of agricultural buildings, but not to areas used exclusively for agricultural purposes. Inspectors should consult with local authorities for specific guidance and consider the potential for electrical shock in determining if ground fault circuit interrupters are required in a particular situation. To further elaborate, let's delve into the technical aspects that determine GFCI requirements in these structures. Section 210.8 of the National Electrical Code provides the rules for GFCI protection. Subsection addresses dwelling units, and subsection B covers other than dwelling units. In agricultural settings, we often deal with buildings that could fall under either category, depending on their use. The key is determining the intended use of the space. If a portion of the agricultural building is used as a dwelling unit, the GFCI requirements for dwelling units apply to those areas as outlined in 210.8. This includes bathrooms, garages, and outdoors. However, the areas dedicated solely to agricultural activities fall under 210.8. This section requires GFCI protection for personnel in specific locations, such as wet locations, where electrical equipment is likely to be used. Wet locations are defined as areas subject to saturation with water or other liquids. Article 100 of the NEC defines wet locations as installations underground or in concrete slabs or masonry in direct contact with the earth, and locations subject to saturation with water or other liquids such as vehicle washing areas, and unprotected locations exposed to weather. In an agricultural setting, this might include areas where animals are washed or where equipment is frequently cleaned with water. The presence of an equipotential plane also influences GFCI requirements. An equipotential plane is a bonding system intended to minimize voltage differences in an area accessible to livestock. This is particularly important in areas where animals are confined, as even small voltage differences can cause them stress or discomfort. If an equipotential plane is installed, GFCI protection is typically required in the vicinity of the plane to further protect personnel and livestock. The distance from a residence is another factor that affects GFCI requirements for outbuildings. If an outbuilding is located close to a residence, it is more likely to be considered an extension of the dwelling, and the GFCI requirements for dwelling units may apply. However, if the outbuilding is located a significant distance from the residence and is used solely for agricultural purposes, the GFCI requirements for other than dwelling units are more likely to apply. The definition of significant distance is subjective and should be based on the specific circumstances of the installation. Local amendments to the NEC can also affect GFCI requirements in agricultural structures. Many jurisdictions adopt the NEC with modifications to address local conditions or concerns. It is essential to check with the local authority having jurisdiction to determine if there are any specific GFCI requirements that apply to agricultural buildings in the area. In addition to the code requirements, it is always a good practice to consider the potential for electrical hazards in agricultural settings. Farms often use a wide variety of electrical equipment, such as motors, pumps, and welders. These devices can pose a significant electrical shock hazard if not properly installed and maintained. GFCI protection can provide an additional layer of safety in these situations, even if it is not explicitly required by the code. When evaluating the need for GFCI protection in an agricultural building, it is important to consider the following factors. Firstly, the intended use of the space. Is it used for dwelling purposes, agricultural activities, or a combination of both? Secondly, is the location a wet location or a dry location? Thirdly, is there an equipotential plane installed? Fourthly, what is the distance from the residence? Fifthly, are there any local amendments to the NEC that apply? Sixthly, what is the potential for electrical hazards in the area? By carefully considering these factors, inspectors can make informed decisions about GFCI requirements in agricultural structures. It's also crucial to remember that the absence of a specific code requirement for GFCI protection does not necessarily mean that it is not needed. The primary goal of electrical safety is to protect people and property from harm. If there is a potential for electrical shock, GFCI protection should be considered, even if it is not explicitly required by the code. In addition, it's a good practice to educate property owners about the benefits of GFCI protection. Many people are not aware of the potential dangers of electrical shock, and they may not understand the importance of GFCI protection. By providing clear and concise information, inspectors can help property owners make informed decisions about electrical safety. Furthermore, regular inspections of electrical systems in agricultural buildings are essential to ensure that they are safe and compliant with the code. These inspections should include a thorough review of GFCI protection, as well as other safety measures such as proper grounding and bonding. Regular maintenance of electrical equipment is also important to prevent electrical hazards. This includes checking for damaged cords, loose connections, and other signs of wear and tear. Any damaged equipment should be repaired or replaced immediately. The National Electrical Code, or NEC, also addresses wiring methods for agricultural buildings. Chapter 5 of the NEC contains specific requirements for agricultural buildings, including those related to wiring methods, grounding, and bonding. These requirements are designed to minimize the risk of electrical shock and fire in agricultural settings. One of the key requirements is the use of moisture-resistant wiring methods. Agricultural buildings are often exposed to moisture, dust, and other contaminants that can damage electrical wiring. Moisture-resistant wiring methods, such as Type UF cable and rigid metal conduit, are designed to withstand these conditions and provide long-lasting protection. Another important requirement is proper grounding and bonding. Grounding and bonding are essential for preventing electrical shock and fire. The NEC specifies the requirements for grounding and bonding in agricultural buildings, including the use of ground rods, bonding jumpers, and other grounding devices. In addition to the NEC requirements, it's important to follow the manufacturer's instructions for all electrical equipment installed in agricultural buildings. The manufacturer's instructions provide specific information about installation, operation, and maintenance that is essential for safe and reliable performance. It is also important to ensure that all electrical work in agricultural buildings is performed by qualified electricians. Qualified electricians have the training and experience necessary to install and maintain electrical systems safely and correctly. They are also familiar with the NEC and other applicable codes and standards. The proper selection and installation of electrical equipment in agricultural buildings are also crucial for safety. This includes selecting equipment that is rated for the intended use and environment, as well as installing it according to the manufacturer's instructions and the NEC requirements. Overcurrent protection is another important aspect of electrical safety in agricultural buildings. Overcurrent protection devices, such as circuit breakers and fuses, are designed to protect electrical circuits from overloads and short circuits. The NEC specifies the requirements for overcurrent protection in agricultural buildings, including the proper sizing and location of overcurrent devices. Surge protection is also important in agricultural buildings, especially in areas that are prone to lightning strikes. Surge protection devices are designed to protect electrical equipment from voltage surges caused by lightning or other sources. The NEC recommends the use of surge protection in agricultural buildings, particularly for sensitive electronic equipment. Furthermore, it's essential to implement a comprehensive safety program for electrical systems in agricultural buildings. This program should include regular inspections, maintenance, and training for employees. Employees should be trained in the proper use of electrical equipment, as well as the procedures for reporting electrical hazards. In conclusion, ensuring electrical safety in agricultural buildings requires a multifaceted approach that includes compliance with the NEC, proper installation and maintenance of electrical equipment, and a comprehensive safety program. By following these guidelines, property owners and inspectors can help prevent electrical shocks, fires, and other electrical hazards in agricultural settings. Remember to always consult the latest edition of the National Electrical Code and local amendments for the most up-to-date requirements. Always consult with qualified professionals for specific guidance on electrical installations in agricultural buildings.